Ranking every SMG in Warzone with 300 health, welcome back, I'm Austin, and starting off with the AK-74U, this is going to go straight into the viable tier. It has a pretty good time to kill, pretty good accuracy, and pretty good range, but what really holds it back is its poor mobility. If we could boost that just a little bit, it would probably go into the competitive tier. The Cold War MP5 is one of those weapons that gets really hurt by the extra 50 health, and it's going to go into below average. I'm going to throw the OTS in next and call this thing competitive, and even though they have the same fire rate, the damages are one different on them, and the OTS kills 70 milliseconds faster than the Cold War MP5, whereas at 250 health, they had the same exact TTKs. So now there's no reason to use the Cold War MP5, and the OTS is just a better version of it. Now the Milano, this is one of those weapons I really want to throw into meta. I'm going to throw it down there just because you can't use it as an SMG. It's really bad there, but if you use it as a sniper support or as a long-range weapon, it is amazing. One of the best weapons in the game. I don't know if I'm giving it too much love if I throw it in meta, so I'm just going to put it at the top of competitive, and I highly suggest running this weapon. Now the MAC-10, this is going to go into below average. Once again, the extra health really hurts it. It still has really good mobility, and it's really easy to use, but the time to kill gets hurt drastically, and the damage per mag is super low, and with the extra health per squad, it really lowers the viability of this weapon. It takes way too many bullets to kill someone with this MAC-10. If you want to use a MAC-10 but it's better, use this Cold War PPSH. I'm throwing it in competitive as well. It's basically the MAC-10, but you get a way bigger magazine, you get a similar fire rate, a similar time to kill, and similar mobility, but your damage per mag is way better, and you get slightly more damage per bullet, making it kill in a couple less shots. The LAP is going to be our first meta SMG. It's really good up close if you put on the compact barrel, and it makes the time to kill within the top 5 of all SMGs up close. It's really easy to use as long as you put on the Microflex LED because the iron sights are a bit gross. Now the LC-10, this is a weapon I've never really liked. At one point it was considered a meta weapon, but I'm throwing in below average. It doesn't have a really good time to kill. While it is really easy to aim, the range on it isn't that great, so the good accuracy doesn't really match up with the range of the weapon. Now if we go to the Tech 9, this is going straight into viable. It's another one of these things like the MAC where the damage per mag is going to be a little bit bad, but you actually get a much better time to kill with it, which is why I'm throwing it up a tier. The KSP, this is one of those weapons I want to call garbage because it just feels so clunky and weird, but if you actually look at this weapon in comparison to some of the other subs I will be putting in the garbage tier, it's definitely better than them, so I'm going to throw it in below average. The TTK isn't as bad as you would think, but it's still really weird and difficult to use in my opinion. The nail gun. This is going straight into niche. Now, I would never recommend using this thing, but if you use it in souls, it does have a good enough time to kill, and the 20 bullets per mag is good enough, but the movement speed isn't good, and the damage per mag is obviously going to be terrible because you can't make it any bigger than 20. Alright, now I have the Bullfrog and PP-19 Bison next to each other because they're actually the same weapon and the Bison just got buffed, so I'm going to be comparing the two really quickly as I do this section. The Bullfrog, first off, is going to go into viable. It has an okay TTK, it has good range, a big damage per mag, and super good accuracy. The Bison before just used to be a garbage tier Bullfrog, but now it is just a slightly worse Bullfrog. I'd still be using the Bullfrog over the PP-19 Bison, but with the new buff, the time to kills are really similar. It's only slightly worse up close, but at range, it really falls off where the Bullfrog is still very viable. So therefore, I would still be rocking this Bullfrog over the Bison. If you guys could all do me a quick favor and like the video if you're really enjoying this so far, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more tier lists, top 10s, and comparing weapons like I just did with the Bullfrog and Bison. And now getting right back into it, the CX-9 is a very competitive sub. It's also one of the better time to kills, it has pretty good range, and still has a decent TTK out to farther ranges, and it's really accurate, so I would still recommend using this thing if you have it unlocked and leveled up. The Modern Warfare MP5 is now the superior MP5, and it's also going to go in competitive for up close. You can't really use this thing at range, but it still has great hip fire, and it still has a really good TTK. The MP7, another competitive Modern Warfare sub. After the initial range of 11 meters, the TTK does fall off quite a bit, so I wouldn't suggest using this thing as a sniper support anymore, but as an up-close SMG, it's still really good and really easy to aim. The mobility just holds it back from putting it in meta. The ISO is one of these weapons that just isn't good enough to be used, so I'm throwing it in below average. The time to kill up close isn't very good, it's one of the lower ones in the game, and then at range it is awful, so you can't use this as a sniper support and you can't use it as an up-close SMG, so there's just no reason to use it. And then the P90 is just barely going to scrape into the viable section. It's really easy to use and has really good damage per mag, so that's why I'm throwing it up here, and the TTK up close is decent, but after the initial range of 13 meters, it really falls off. The Uzi, this is going to go in below average as well, but I'm going to throw it into the upper tier above the LC10, KSP, and ISO, but I'd still use the MAC 10 and Cold War MP5 over it. The Striker 45, we got our first garbage tier. This thing is absolutely horrendous. It wasn't good with 250 health, and it definitely did not get any better with 300. The AUG. This SMG is a very interesting one. I don't know whether to throw it at the top of viable or at the bottom of competitive. I'm going to throw it at the top of viable just because the mobility is so awful on it. I know I've said on some of these other subs, like the AK-74U, that the mobility isn't great, but the AUG is just so much worse. You're moving around like you got an LMG with this thing, but the time to kill is so good when you put on the NATO ammo, and you have really good damage per mag, and it's really accurate. The AUG is very good as a sniper support. It's just you're going to be lugging around the map, and I really don't like that, so I personally don't really use the AUG too much anymore. But when Modern Warfare 2019 was first released and Warzone was out, I was using the AUG all the time. The Fennec is another viable SMG where it actually has a pretty good time to kill and a really good fire rate, making it super forgiving to use, but the damage per mag is really awful, and that's going to get you into some situations that are unfavorable. The Tommy gun is another below average SMG. I kind of want to throw it into garbage tier, but it's definitely better than the Striker 45. That's just in a class of its own, so I'm going to throw it at the bottom of below average. It's one of the only Vanguard SMGs that's trash, because that is one thing Vanguard is. They took over the close range meta with their subs. And speaking of that, the Owen gun, the next meta weapon that I would definitely put ahead of the Lapa. This thing is amazing as a sniper support, and it is amazing as an up-close SMG. The TTK on this thing is ridiculous. It has really good damage per mag, and it's really easy to aim. The only problem with it is that big magazine getting in your way, but that's an alright con considering how good it is and everything else. The Type 100, I want to throw in meta just because I really like the gun, but I'm going to throw it down in competitive because you can do it one of two ways with this gun. You can build it out to have the fastest TTK among every single SMG in the game, but then you're going to have insane recoil, or you can build it out to be a little bit better over range because the base range on this weapon is 18 meters, which is amazing for an SMG, and then you still get a top 6 time to kill with the SMG, but you can use it out over longer ranges. So this thing is really versatile, and I would suggest you guys try this one out. The MP40, I'm throwing it at the top of meta. It's the best SMG in the game, so it's absolutely broken and stupid. I don't know if they haven't nerfed this thing more yet. If you put on the recoil booster and 45 round mag with the short barrel that eliminates the third range, this thing is an amazing sniper support and an amazing SMG. It's absolutely BS how quickly it kills. Alright, the Vanguard PPSH, we're going to throw this thing into competitive. I definitely want to throw into meta just because it doesn't have enough range on it to be good, but it is a better Modern Warfare MP5, so I'm going to throw it right in front of that. These aren't really in any order, but just know, use the Vanguard PPSH over the Modern Warfare MP5 because it can kill a little bit faster, and you can get just as good, if not better, hip fire. The Sten is going straight into the viable tier. It's not bad. It doesn't get a lot of love because there's all of these other Vanguard SMGs above it, but it's definitely one that's fun to use, and I suggest giving it a try. Now, I don't have the well gun on the list, so I just have it listed as the top rake right now, but the well gun is going to be one of those meta subs again from Vanguard. Now, talk about a weapon that's easy to use. There's no recoil on this. You get a really fast time to kill. The only con is the damage per mag, but because you're so quick and mobile with it, you can get to cover easily, dip and duck in and out of fights. The well gun is just one of those weapons that anyone can use and have a good time with. And finally, the Armaguero, once again, I don't have a picture of it, so the 1911 is going to represent it, and I would throw it in between viable and competitive. I think I have to throw competitive just because the time to kill is so good, but it can only be used really effectively up close because once you get the really fast TTK builds, the recoil is a bit much, but you're still not going to be at a huge disadvantage up close over any of these other subs. Just a solid SMG that's competitive, and if you want to see every single AR ranked with 300 health, I'll have that video linked right here. Peace.